Yeah, right. Okay, I think we want to get started because I've timed this quite precisely. I'll be talking for about 40 minutes, and well, about 40 minutes, and so that we've got a few 5 minutes or so for questions afterwards. Also be giving a demo, so a very rudimentary demo. This is our subject, or my subject for today, the BLOB Streaming project for MySQL. My name is Paul McCullagh, and I'm from PrimeBase Technologies. And these are the topics that I'll be covering today. I'll just go, some of the basics about blobs and streaming, just to define these concepts. And can everybody hear me? Is this loud enough? Okay. Then a brief overview of the BLOB Streaming project, and then, as I said, I'll be giving a demo of how it works. This is quite a low-level talk. It's going to describe exactly how the whole system works. I have a few graphics which I worked very hard on so that it's easy to explain. Then I'll be describing the database operations insert and select and how they work, and then at the end some more advanced topics on how backup will work and how replication will work. That stuff is still in the pipeline, but the rest of what I will be talking about is already working. So the definition of a blob. Well, blobs, first of all, were invented by Jim Starkey, so we have the privilege of having him here at MySQL. It was quite a while ago when he was working for DEC. And this is Jim's definition of a blob: a thing that ate Cincinnati, Cleveland, or whatever, said Jim. And I think that's a reference to quite a bad B-movie that only maybe Jim will remember. His story of it is quite funny. You can find it on the web. So BLOB is actually what we call a backronym, and Terry McKeever of Apollo Computing, where Jim worked afterwards, called it a basic large object. And we have binary large object from Informix when they included that in their database. Blobs, though, I think everybody here knows it's unstructured data of all types: photos, movies, and documents, multimedia, and that kind of thing. So just briefly and in very simple terms, how blobs handling works in MySQL today. First of all, the blob is loaded into the MySQL send buffer, and when it's filled, the whole message is transported over to the server, where it is stored in the MySQL server receive buffer. And this buffer has a maximum size, which is set by the max allowed packet system variable. And then that blob is taken and handed over to the storage engine, which puts it on disk. So streaming involves making a virtual connection or making complete connection from the source to the destination without buffering the whole blob or the whole data in between. And what it means is that as I'm reading the blob data from the file in this end, I could be storing it, the parts that have already arrived at the server, on the disk simultaneously. Streaming is a concept which is actually very common to the web. We do it every day with our browsers. When the data is retrieved from the database, it's being displayed in the browser. If it's a huge file, or if I'm playing a movie, it could be the server is still reading it off the disk simultaneously. So the object is to get this functionality, to add this functionality to, well, one of the objectives is to add this functionality to MySQL. And this is actually what I'm saying here. Main objective is to stream large binary data in and out of the database directly. But we have a few other goals. One is to be unlimited by the size of the data that we're putting in, so no need to adjust a system variable to the maximum size of some conceivable blob that we might want to insert into the database. And we have a plan to create a scalable backend because anybody storing blobs just doesn't know in the end how big his project is going to grow, how many blobs he's going to accumulate. The system must be able to scale out. And the objective is to create this functionality so that any engine can actually use it. So the BLOB streaming project is concerned with the unstructured data storage, not with the structured data storage, which will be done as before by other storage engines. And important, it's in order to get to the data is client-side support, and the objective is to provide client-side support for all of the common MySQL connectors, and that part of, we're getting on with that part of the project as well. So the question often comes up, well, actually quite often in the web-based environment where documents are often involved of some sort or another, why should I put these blobs in the database? I'm putting them in the file system, it's working, or whatever. Maybe you don't have a solution, maybe you're just starting a project and you're asking this question. The main reason, the central reason for wanting to put the blobs in the database is because you want referential integrity between the metadata, which you're normally storing in the database, and the blob data itself. So what happens if there's no transactional consistency is that you end up with invalid references, or you find you have a reference in the database, but the blob is missing. And this is a situation which takes quite a bit of time to sort out if you're doing it at the application level. At the same time, you want to be able to say, here is all of my data, the structured and the unstructured data. I have a consistent snapshot which I can take, or I can, we'll get to that. And I can transport that to another system for testing, for example. Another thing is that it's a fact that small blobs, small binary objects are handled simply better by a database, better than a file system. So file systems come under strain when you're dealing with millions of files, and a database is actually designed to handle that kind of data. And of course, it's almost impossible to get a consistent backup of if you've got your structured data in the database and the related unstructured data somewhere in the file system. It's almost impossible to get a consistent backup. And if this data is then distributed or scaled out over many servers, then it's even more difficult or impossible to do that. And putting the blobs in the database makes them then subject to those things that we know from a database, the kind of facilities the database provides. The one is backup, but the other facilities are things like replication. And so that's where you can slot your blob storage into a database-based HA solution.